Lost in the Sea of Sand. Johnnie's Odyssey through the North African desert. The sun, a relentless inferno, hammered down on Sergeant Jonathan Walker, each stroke turning his world a shade dustier, his vision a touch hazier. Sand swirled around him, mocking his parched throat with a memory of cool, clear water. His canteen, a cruel joke in his pocket, held only the ghosts of past sips. Separated from his squad during a dust storm's fury, he found himself adrift in a vast ocean of dunes, the North African desert stretching before him like a shimmering, auteur eternity. Days bled into each other, marked by a symphony of suffering. The gnawing hunger was a constant companion, a dull ache that grew sharper with each sunrise. Thirst, a raging fire in his throat, fueled nightmares of cool springs and gushing rivers. But most unsettling was the ever-present feeling of unseen eyes on him. Not just the sun's scorching gaze, but something else, something that prickled at the edge of his perception, a rustle in the stillness that defied the wind. Were they the jinn, the malevolent spirits whispered of by the locals, or mere figments of a mind warped by the desert's relentless heat? Mirages, shimmering oases that dissolved into shimmering mirages, became his cruel companions. Driven by desperation, he chased them across the baking sand, only to collapse in despair, spitting grit, hope turning to ash on his tongue. He found solace in the small, the insignificant. A beetle defying the heat, a lizard darting for cover, even the taste of grit on his tongue, a harsh reminder of his own existence. One night, under a sky ablaze with indifferent stars, hunger gnawed at him with the ferocity of a desert wolf. Driven to the edge, sanity hanging by a thread, he saw them scorpions, scuttling across the sand, their menacing forms etched against the moonlight. Their venomous sting was forgotten in the face of starvation. With shaking hands, he scooped them up, their crunchy demise a macabre symphony in his parched throat. Each bite was a gamble with death, a dance on the precipice of oblivion. He lived, but the taste of venom and despair lingered, a grim reminder of the abyss he had stared into. The days that followed were a fever dream. Sunburns bled, his lips cracked and bloodied, his voice a hoarse whisper carried away by the mocking wind. He saw things, apparitions conjured by his parched mind, his squad mates, their faces contorted in agony, beckoning him closer. Were they mirages, twisted by his sun-addled brain, or whispers from the beyond, taunts from the desert itself? Just when he felt the cold grip of oblivion tightening, a sight broke through the haze. A string of camels, laden with goods, led by figures in flowing robes, emerged from the horizon. Berbers, nomads of the desert, their faces etched with concern offered him water, the sweetest nectar he had ever tasted. Tears streamed down his sand-crusted cheeks, relief washing over him like a wave. They spoke little, their language a melody unknown to him, but kindness needed no translation. They tended to his wounds, fed him dates and dried meat, and carried him on a camel, a prince on a strange steed. In the dusty town of Siwa, they deposited him at a British outpost, his journey through hell finally over. But back among his own, Johnnie wasn't the same. The scars on his body healed, but the desert had left its mark on his soul. The weight of its silence, the echoes of its whispers, the taste of sand and despair lingered. He never spoke of the unseen eyes, the whispers, the phantoms that stalked him in the desert. Perhaps they were figments of a sun-addled mind, or maybe, just maybe, they were a grim reminder of the unseen forces that danced at the edges of sanity in the heart of the unforgiving desert. But the desert had left its mark, not just on his body, but on his spirit. He carried the weight of its silence, the echoes of its whispers, the taste of sand and despair. He had stared into the abyss and blinked back, forever haunted by the memories of his harrowing journey. He was Sergeant Jonathan Walker, and the desert had made him a survivor, a storyteller, and a man forever marked by the sands of hell. However, this is just the beginning. What if? The Berbers who saved him tell him stories of the desert, of ancient curses and jinn lurking in the dunes. Does Johnnie believe them? Do the whispers return, fueled by their warnings? Back in the military, Johnnie is plagued by nightmares and flashbacks. His experiences make him unfit for duty, yet he can't shake the feeling that he hasn't escaped the desert. Back in the military, Johnnie found himself a shell of his former self. The desert's grip remained tight, its searing sands and chilling nights replaying in his nightmares. The taste of sand lingered on his tongue, the prickling sensation of unseen eyes persisted, and the whispers followed him, slithering in the wind, echoing in his dreams. Doctors diagnosed him with desert madness, a catch-all for the psychological scars inflicted by the harsh environment. But medication couldn't silence the whispers, nor quell the unease that gnawed at him. Each night, under the sterile white ceiling of the military hospital, he saw them, his squad mates, their faces contorted in agony, beckoning him back to the dunes. Then, one night, under the oppressive silence of the hospital ward, a story weaved its way into Johnny's fragmented memories. A story told by the Berbers, passed down through generations, whispered around crackling campfires. A story of a jinn, an ancient spirit bound to the desert, its malevolent gaze forever seeking new victims. A shiver ran down Johnny's spine. Was it just another figment of his fractured mind, or was there a sliver of truth to the tale? His nightmares intensified, the faces of his squad merging with the chilling image of the jinn, its whispers growing clearer, more insistent. He confided in a weary nurse, a woman hardened by years of tending to war's broken souls. Her eyes, surprisingly, held a glimmer of understanding. She spoke of similar stories, of soldiers returning from the desert with eyes haunted by unseen things, voices muttering in their ears. But instead of dismissal, she offered a glimmer of hope. "Maybe," she said, her voice raspy but kind, "the voices aren't madness, but a warning. Maybe the desert speaks to those who listen, those who survive its embrace." Her words resonated with Johnny. The desert had indeed spoken to him, in its own brutal way. He had survived, against all odds, and perhaps the whispers held a message, a key to understanding his ordeal. Unearthing the desert secrets. With newfound purpose, Johnny delved into the world of desert lore, devouring books on ancient myths and jinn legends. He sought out old Bedouin tribes, their weathered faces holding tales passed down through centuries. Each story deepened the mystery, painting a picture of the jinn as a complex entity, not just a malevolent spirit, but a guardian of the desert, a force of nature both destructive and protective. His investigation led him back to Siwa, the oasis town where the Berbers had rescued him. There, he met an old storyteller, his eyes filled with an ancient wisdom. The storyteller listened patiently to Johnny's tale, then spoke of a hidden spring, a sacred place said to appease the jinn and quiet its whispers. "But the journey is fraught with peril," the storyteller warned, his voice a low rumble. "The desert tests those who seek its secrets. Are you strong enough, soldier?" Driven by an unsettling mix of fear and hope, Johnny embarked on a new journey, this time not to escape the desert, but to understand it. He traversed treacherous dunes, navigating by the stars and the whispers that now seemed less menacing, more guiding. He faced sandstorms that threatened to bury him alive, and mirages that tempted him with false promises. Finally, after weeks of hardship, he found a hidden oasis nestled between towering dunes. The air felt charged with an unseen energy, the silence broken only by the trickle of water. Following his intuition, he found a cave tucked away within the rocky cliffs. Inside, etched on the ancient walls, were symbols eerily similar to those Johnny had seen in his nightmares. As he traced the symbols, a cold wind swept through the cave, extinguishing his torch. Panic surged through him, but then, a voice resonated in his mind, not harsh but calm, powerful but not malevolent. It spoke of respect, of balance, of the desert's delicate ecosystem, and the consequences of disrupting it. Johnny understood. The jinn wasn't seeking revenge, but reminding him of his responsibility, of the fragile bond between mankind and the desert. He had taken from the desert, now he had to give back. Mending the broken bond. Leaving the cave, Johnny embarked on a mission to bridge the gap between the military and the local tribes. He taught his fellow soldiers about the desert's fragile ecosystem, the importance of respecting its traditions. He worked with the Berbers to improve water conservation and prevent further damage to the dunes. The whispers didn't disappear entirely, but they changed. They became warnings of approaching sandstorms, reminders to tread lightly on the